Crash and burn.
Hey everybody. So tonight I am looking to discuss the Sex Pistols' one and only album, and that is of course 1977's Never Mind the Bollocks. Here's the Sex Pistols. This is one of those records that I don't really listen to a lot because they're sort of one of the first punk bands you get into when you're a kid, and I am certainly no exception. I got into them like back in grade 7 or grade 8, and you know, all these years later, it's like looking back, it's debatable if I ever really liked the music in the first place. There are a handful of great songs on this record, don't get me wrong, but it almost seems like getting into the Sex Pistols is sort of like a punk rock rite of passage just because of the attitude behind this album, the attitude behind the band, the chaos, the filth and the fury that were the Sex Pistols. It's almost like you get so blindsided by the chaos that was Sid Vicious and the fact that he killed his girlfriend Nancy, and you're like, holy fuck, this is like the punkest shit on earth. Like, I mean, they only released one record, and when you're a kid, they only released one record because Vicious went to prison, and of course, how could they record more records? Their bass player was gone, and that, of course, wasn't the reason why. The reason why was because the band just imploded while on tour, I believe. I think they were specifically in Texas when they played their last show, or Johnny says the line, if you ever get the feeling that you've been cheated, and that's kind of it. And the band just couldn't hold it together because they were just too chaotic. There's too much of a sort of like a frenzy around them. Like, no matter what, like Vicious, especially, no matter what Vicious did, he was like this automatic, like fantastic disaster. And Malcolm McLaren knew this, I mean, Vicious couldn't play a note on the bass guitar to save his life. I mean, Glenn Matlock is the bass player on this record. So Vicious's musical abilities were non-existent. Vicious was like a chaos demon. That's what he was. Wherever he went, a whole like hurricane of problems would follow. And McLaren knew this, and that's why Vicious was such an integral part of the band. It wasn't because of his musical aspirations or his musical input. It was because Vicious was a nightmare. And that's the sort of thing that you love when you're a kid. And so it's almost like I kind of made myself like this record. Now, that being said, okay, like Holidays in the Sun is a wicked song. Pretty Vacant is a wicked song. I'm really, really sick of God Save the Queen, but it's still a really good song. No Feelings is a really good song. Bodies kicks ass. And my absolute favorite song in here is Submission. But again, it's almost like this album is more hype than substance. Like it's almost like, I don't know. It feels more like people like to use this record as some sort of punk rock bookmark. Like what I've noticed a few times throughout the course of my life when I've been at bars locally where they had a band playing, and the band, of course, would be playing more middle of the road things. Like they'd be covering, I don't know, Creedence Clearwater, or they'd be doing like old Beatles songs, or they'd, maybe they'd do like Radar Love, like Golden Earring, and like bar music. And then when they're like, all right, we're gonna like get a little rougher now, and then they'd say we're gonna get punk, and they'd play God Save the Queen, or worse yet, one of the worst songs ever written, and that's Anarchy in the UK. I fucking hate that song. I've never liked that song. I mean, I remember Green Jelly covered it on their first record, I think. I think it's on their first record, the one with the 3 little pigs. Hated it then, too. And it was like, the music, the songs, when they're good, I can't really say they're great. Because I like the anger, and I like Rotten's vocal delivery. I like how he kind of spits everything out, and he sounds genuinely pissed off. But the songs all kind of share there's a sameness to them all. And I know that you could make the argument about the same thing, like, say, out of anything the Ramones ever did. But for me, I identify with the Ramones debut album that came out in 76 way more than I ever could with this, because I found, like I said, I had kind of shoehorned myself into liking the music because I liked the guys in the band. But whereas with the Ramones, I mean, I felt that the guys in the Ramones were all really shy and so completely introverted that their music had to speak for them because their personalities wouldn't let them speak for themselves. And I found just falling in love with the Ramones music so much more natural. And like, here it is all these years later. And whenever I put this record on, I just don't feel it. You know, like Holidays in the Sun and Pretty Vacant when I was a kid felt chaotic and but I don't know, they just don't feel that way anymore. It feels like it's like this is almost a place for older people to sort of draw like a punk rock line in the sand, and they'll go, "Oh, you know, oh this new punk, like I don't understand why kids today like the Green Day and the Blink 182, you know, give me the Sex Pistols any day." And it's like they're just proud that they get to say the band name because the band name is offensive enough. I mean, even though technically speaking, the band name isn't really that offensive at all. Just Malcolm McLaren had a shop. It was called Sex, and the band they attached the name Pistols, tying the two together. So it wasn't like I said, like it seems like when it comes to people from a certain age group, my age and older, it's like they say Sex Pistols, like whoa, fuck, they're gonna blow minds when they say that. But really, when you associate the truth behind it, you know, or you associate a story with the truth behind it. No, just Sex was the name of the store. The Pistols were the name of the band. The Pistols were firing off and sort of selling the sex that the shop had because the whole bondage thing was big in the punk movement at this point. And again, I think one of the things that continues to sell people on this band is the look. Like Vicious wearing the swastika t-shirt in whatchamacallit, The Great Rock and Roll Swindle, when he's in France or whatever, and he's drawn like on that chick's chest with the marker and everything, and he's wearing that swastika t-shirt. And I remember when I was a kid and I saw that, I was like, holy fuck. I'm like, this is like the craziest and most offensive thing ever. I'm like, this guy is so fucking cool. Like, he just doesn't care. Like, I'm like, holy Christ, how can you get away with wearing that shirt? And I was completely blown apart by the fact that this guy was doing that, and he was doing it so openly. You know, especially walking around France where, you know, the Nazis occupied France and it wasn't good. And it was just like his lust for anarchy was boundless. And I wanted to be a part of that. But there it is again. It wasn't so much that I ever find myself sort of referencing the music whenever I talk about this record. It's always like I'm referencing the attitude behind the music, the attitude that the band had to make the music. And I don't know, because overall, I just feel like nobody really likes this record. I think people just like referencing this record in regards to when they were punk, when they were younger. You know, like I was into the Pistols, and it means something to them. And it kind of does because of the chaos and the filth and the disgusting shit that the band got up to. And I don't know, it just feels like all these years later, there's not a lot of songs on here that keep bringing me back. My favorite song, like I said a couple of minutes ago, was Submission. My absolute favorite song is Submission. And I mean, Holidays in the Sun, Bodies. I mean, Problems isn't bad, but my issue with Problems and 17 and New York and the album closer, EMI, is that they're just kind of like nothing, you know? And the rest of the songs that I feel are stronger, I still feel like the thing that makes them greater is it has more to do with how I picture the band in my head whenever I hear them than the actual power of the music itself. You know, like for example, like I'll take Crass's Feeding of the 5,000. Now I know that came out a year later, but I'll take that record as sort of like the birth of British punk for me any day. Like that record is fun, it's bouncy, the music's varied, the styles it's kind of all over the place. You don't know well, I mean, overall with Crass's entire discography, you have no idea what that band was going to do next. They kept everything so fun and so fresh. And I know, again, this record is the only record the Pistols released, but it just feels kind of safe for a record that's so shrouded in anarchy and aggression. You know, it feels very walled in and very, very boxed in and very like segregated almost. Like, no, this is how this punk rock is supposed to sound. And I don't love that because it feels too formulaic. Like it's almost like punk by numbers, you know? And maybe I'm the only person that feels that. Well, no, I can't be the only person that feels that way. Because throughout the course of time, I've talked to some people here and there, and whenever we talked about the Sex Pistols, we always talked about the chaos. We never really talked about the music. And I mean, again, oh, Anarchy in the UK, that song is like a crime against humanity. Remember Motley Crue covered it on something they did, and I remember everybody in whatever grade it was listening to it like, whoa, Crue's covering the Pistols. And it's like, oh, Motley Crue were a bunch of fucking creeps, A. And B, Anarchy in the UK is awful. Like, I'd rather fucking watch grass grow than listen to that song ever again. And it just feels like, I don't know, it just feels like people reference it to make themselves feel punk. And nobody really references this record in regards to the strength of the music. It's like the record has withstood the test of time. Again, I think because of a really, really strong cover. The artwork is phenomenal. And then the stories surrounding it. And I mean, the fact that Vicious killed Nancy. Now, there's a lot of speculation as to whether or not he did. There's that whole thing with that dude, Michael, and the police never even looked for that guy, Michael. And apparently, Michael showed up to his room in the Chelsea where him and a bunch of his friends were staying with a bunch of money wrapped in one of Nancy's hair ties. And there's all this sketchy shit about it. But that happened way back. I mean, Vicious died of an overdose on February 2nd, 1979. So if somebody else did do it, this is long sorted. Everybody involved is dead. So yeah. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it because this went way too long. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for, again, wow, well over 10 minutes while I discuss the Sex Pistols' one and only 1977 album. Never mind the bollocks, here's the Sex Pistols. Like always, if you like this record or you like this review, don't forget to go and do something nice for somebody. Remember, it's simple. Give $1 to charity the next time you're at Walmart or hold a door for somebody. But most importantly, never forget that the world kicks so much more ass because you're in it, and the world is a way better place because you are here. I'm going to go. You guys are amazing. Have a good night.